Okay, so um, today let's kind of dive into like a super common error you see in software development.
Yeah.
I bet a lot of you have run into this. The object reference not set to an instance of an object error, or like more formally, it's the
System null reference exception.
right the system
Okay.
null reference exception. You're like working on your Acumatica customization, cruising along, and then bam, that error just hits y'all.
Oh, yeah, it can be so frustrating. Like you're in the middle of a project, everything's going great, and then it just comes to a screeching halt.
Totally. And like the tricky thing is that for sure. So Mayuri, I heard you had like this really memorable encounter with this error while you were working on a client's project. Could you tell us a little about like what you were trying to do and like what went wrong?
Yeah, I'd love to hear about this specific case. Was it related to like a custom field or maybe like working with a graph or a DAC that hadn't been set up correctly?
Yeah, for like those who aren't super familiar with Acumatica, DACs are basically like the blueprints for your data, and graphs define how that data is processed and displayed in the system. So Mayuri, can you kind of explain what happened when you hit that null reference exception? Like what happened right away?
Yeah, I'm really curious to know, like, what was the impact on the client and their business? Did it cause like big disruptions or
Well,
prevent them from using certain features? Like, how bad was it really?
yeah, it was a pretty big problem for the client. So like imagine they're trying to like generate this super important sales report, and then all of a sudden, boom, the system throws this error and like shuts the whole thing down. Talk about frustrating, right? Oh yeah, for sure. That sounds like it could really mess with their business. Did they have any like workarounds they could use while you were fixing it?
No, not really. This particular thing was totally broken because of the error, so it was definitely like a top priority for us to fix.
Oh wow, yeah, I bet. So Mayuri, can you kind of walk us through how you figured this out? Like where did you even start with this whole null reference exception thing?
Okay, so the first thing we did was we look really carefully at the code, like right where the error was happening.
Yeah.
And we had just added this new custom field to the sales order screen. And we thought that was probably what was causing it. So like the field was supposed to automatically calculate a discount based on the customer's loyalty level.
Yeah.
But it seems like we kind of missed a step.
Okay, so you had like the DAC, that's like the blueprint for the data, right?
Right.
And the graph.
Yeah.
And that's like the logic for how the data is processed.
Yeah.
So where did things go wrong?
Well, the problem was we didn't think about what would happen if the customer didn't have a loyalty level assigned. So when the code tried to use that field to calculate the discount, it hit a null value. And that caused the null reference exception. It's kind of like trying to calculate a discount based on a customer's favorite color when you don't even know what their favorite color is.
Ah, okay, that makes sense. So how did you fix that? Like what did you do about the missing information?
So there's like a couple ways you can handle that. One way is to like make sure every customer has a loyalty level. You could do that like by default, or you could like move the data over somehow. But for this client, we decided to go with something a little more flexible. We decided to add null checks to our code.
Okay, so that's more like preventing the problem in the first place, right?
Exactly.
Can you explain a little bit more
Yeah,
about how those null checks work?
sure. Basically, a null check is like a safety net in your code. So before the code tries to use a value, that might be null, like our customer loyalty level in this case, it first checks if the value actually exists. And if it does, then everything works normally. The calculation happens just like it's supposed to. But if it doesn't, then we can handle that in a way that doesn't break everything. Like maybe we give them a default discount, or we ask the user to enter the missing information.
So it's all about like planning ahead for those times when a value might be missing and making sure the system doesn't crash.
Right?
That's really smart.
Thanks.
Did you do anything else besides the null checks to kind of help prevent this from happening again?
Yeah.
That's a really good point about like handling errors gracefully can make a huge difference for the people using the system.
Yeah.
So did you do anything else besides the null checks to kind of help prevent this from happening again?
Yeah, we did. We also added logging, so we could like track these situations and see what's going on that way. Even if a null value does slip through, we can find it and fix it quickly.
So it's like
Yeah.
you have this detective looking for any null values that are causing trouble.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and by using null checks and logging and really understanding how Acumatica works with data, we were able to get rid of that null reference exception and get everything working smoothly again for the client.
That's awesome. So for our listeners out there who might be struggling with the same kind of thing in Acumatica, what are like the main takeaways? What's the most important stuff to remember?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just to be aware of those null values,
Mm.
especially when you're working with custom fields or like complicated data relationships. You can't just assume that all the data will always be there.
Yeah, you got to be ready for those edge cases.
Exactly. And remember, null checks are your friend. They're like seatbelts for your code. They keep everything safe.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
Mayuri, thanks so much for sharing your expertise with us. This has been super helpful.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm always happy to help make Acumatica development a little less mysterious.
And to all our listeners out there, if you need some expert help with your Acumatica customizations, or you're just struggling with those null reference exceptions, definitely reach out to the team at Tayana Solutions. They have so much experience. And they can help you make sure your systems are running like a dream. You can find all their contact info on our website at website address.
Yeah, we're here to help. And make sure you're getting the most out of Acumatica.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone. And until next time, happy coding.